All right, guys. Aaron Eads here. I've been live in Peoria, or I am live in Peoria right now. I have a little bit more time to tell you everything that happened in the courtroom this morning. Was a little rushed last time. We just had a 15-minute break. That was only enough time for me to just kind of spew some information out. But right now I'm going to take some more time, go over some of my notes from the courtroom and show you some drawings that our sketch artist made to kind of give you a visual representation of what is going on during the trial of Brent Christensen. So once some more people start watching on here, I'll start going over the notes, tell you exactly what's happening. By now, you've probably heard the biggest headline of the day. His defense attorneys say he killed Ying Zhang. I don't know how many people were expecting to hear that. A lot of people were kind of taken aback when they heard it in the courtroom. So it's there was that bombshell of development. Let's go over what exactly was said this morning, and I'll also show you some pictures. Let me show you. This is a picture off of another phone, but that's the layout of the courtroom from our sketch artist up front. Of course, photography is not allowed inside. You have Judge Jim Shadid over there. You can see Christensen is sitting at the end with the rest of his defense attorneys behind him. The prosecutors are at the other table there. That was a sketch of him from this morning. Now, what happened was he, as proceedings were about to begin, one of his defense attorneys put his hand on his shoulder, pointed out someone who was in the audience. He looked back and smiled at them. Don't know who it was. Could have been a family or a friend or anything like that. And then there's also one point where it appeared that Christensen teared up, and I'm going to tell you about that also in a second. First up, this is a sketch of Assistant U.S. Attorney Eugene Miller. He's been kind of leading the team for the prosecution. Now, I've got several pages of notes here on his opening statements, so I'm just going to start telling you some of the things he said. The very first thing he said was, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he kidnapped her, he murdered her, he covered up his crime." He repeated that phrase several times throughout his opening statements. He also showed some pictures of Ying as well. And what he did is he kind of took the jury through what the FBI says happened that day. He describes how Zhang, got on the bus, how Christensen is accused to have taken her back to his apartment. He describes how he killed her. We'll talk about that in a minute. He says that Christensen basically, in conversations with his mental health people at the U of I counseling, said he developed an interest in serial killers sometime in December of 2016, downloaded photos of women in bondage. He told the jury he admitted to having a fascination to that kind of thing. So Miller said that he was recorded in some way or another via text or audio. Christensen was recorded as having said, "I don't care how I'm remembered, just that I am." And that, quote, "fading into nothingness is not an option. I would rather destroy humanity." So Eugene Miller starts off his opening statements to the jury, and again, here's a picture of him. Just by portraying Christensen as a guy who was mentally troubled and saying that he had a fascination with serial killers and wanted to kind of make some kind of a legacy. This is Eugene Miller's argument. He called Christensen highly intelligent, told the jury about his education, and that he'd been working toward a PhD. He said he was very smart about the whole thing. He says that the morning that it happened, and this is Eugene Miller talking to the jury, he's the prosecution, opening statements. He said the morning of the alleged kidnapping, Christensen went to the Schnucks over in Champaign off of Springfield Avenue. It's the one that's across from Planet Fitness. Said that he'd shaved that morning and bought a bottle of Admiral Nelson's rum, and then spent the day drinking and driving around looking for a victim. And this came out more than a year and a half ago. You've probably heard the part where police say He was trying to pose as an undercover cop. They say that he they say that he tried to get one girl into his car. Hey, I'm an undercover cop. Can I ask you some questions? Can you come inside and sit down? And then that woman told him no and reported it to the police. But Miller says he kept driving around and eventually convinced Ying Zhang to go into his car. Here's what he says happened after that. This is viewer discretion advised. If any of this is making you uncomfortable, you don't want to hear this part. Just fair warning right ahead of time. Miller says that Christensen bound her hands, took her up to his apartment, sexually assaulted her on his mattress. Direct quote from Eugene Miller this morning, quote, her blood rained down the wall. Miller says he choked her for 10 minutes, then carried her to his bathtub, hit her head with a Louisville Slugger as hard as he could, stabbed her in the neck, and then cut off her head. Miller didn't go into detail about how how Christensen may have disposed of Zhang's remains. He only said that he disposed of her clothes, backpack, and phone. He kept the mattress and the baseball bat, though, is what Miller says, and that is going to come into play later today because of a key piece of evidence. And again, here's our sketch artist picture of Miller. He's leading the team for the prosecution. That's a sketch of him delivering his opening statements, which, if you're just now joining us, is what I've been describing now. So basically, Miller says that where Christensen would have messed up is he failed to clean under the carpet or behind the baseboard. Messed up meaning as in if he was trying to not get caught, which is a pretty safe assumption, assuming all this is true. The FBI began their searches. They questioned him a couple times. Then he goes on to the point where we captured footage on our news cameras of Christensen attending the vigil or the rally for Zhang. That was several weeks after she disappeared. Our news camera, we didn't know who he was at the time, of course. We just inadvertently captured him walking there. During that time, the FBI had his ex-girlfriend who was with him right then. They had her wearing a wire. Miller says that he was caught on audio saying, quote, I just wanted to see how many people were here. They're here for me. So yes, this is the way, Bridget, this is the way the prosecutor, Eugene Miller, says it went down. And if you've missed any part of this, you're just now joining us, this video is going to be on our Facebook page. You can go back and watch it later to go back to the beginning of this. Christensen also described in detail to his ex-girlfriend apparently how he did this. Miller says Christensen was captured as having said, quote, I'm apparently very good at this, figuring that he hadn't been caught at that point. Let's see, let me look through my notes here. So that, and then Miller said there was DNA evidence for all this. That pretty much was the conclusion for Eugene Miller's opening statements today. And for anybody else who's wondering, Illinois as a state does not have a death penalty. This is a federal case. It is a federal law. It's a U.S. government court, not an Illinois court. And so because it's the government, yes, the death penalty is on the table. If found guilty, he will be sentenced to either life in prison or death. So here's the real shocking part this morning. That was Prosecutor Eugene Miller's opening statements. He went into detail about what he says happened that he told the jury. Here's what the defense had to say, and I'm going to show you a picture here, of George Tassif, who was doing the opening statements for the defense. That's our sketch artist's version of him. Let me look back at my notes here. I'll tell you what he told the jury. He said, and I'm paraphrasing this part, he said, I'm going to tell you something that's going to shock you. And he said, and this is a direct quote, Brent Christensen is responsible for the death of Ying Zhang. Brent Christensen killed Ying Zhang, and nothing that we say or do during this phase of the trial will be an attempt to dispute or deny that. So the defense is coming out at the beginning of their opening statement saying he did it. His defense attorneys are saying, yes, he killed Ying Zhang. He was responsible for her death. So then he kind of addressed. So that begs the question: why are we having a trial then? Right? If we're saying that he killed him, why are we doing this? And he said because his life is on the line here, and we're going to try to save his life. Now, somebody mentioned something about a 13th body. I want to go back to that real quick. That is one thing I forgot to mention. Thank you for bringing that up. During the opening statements, Eugene Miller said Christensen was caught on tape through FBI surveillance saying that Zhang was his 13th victim, that he'd done this 12 times before and had gotten away from it, or gotten away with it. Fast forward again, let's go back to the defense attorney talking, and again, there's a picture of him, George Tassif. That's our sketch artist drawing there. Tassif said, so why are we having a trial? Well, his life is on the line. We're going to dispute a lot of the things and a lot of the evidence that the government is going to present. He said, we understand that Christensen is responsible for Zhang's death. We're not going to dispute that. What we are going to dispute is some of the facts of the case and some of the testimony that you're going to hear over the next few days. They said, for example, it's just not true that Christensen killed 12 other people. The FBI even says they have no evidence for it. He says the prosecution's going to try to get you to believe that. You need to keep an open mind about it and take that into consideration. Tassif kind of told the story about Christensen's mental health and what he'd been through over the last few years. Basically, he painted a picture almost as Christensen as a victim of some sort. Said that he entered a downward spiral in his life. Says that he visited counseling or went to see counselors to try to attack his substance abuse issues. Apparently, he was drinking a lot of alcohol, combining that with other medications, starting to have dark thoughts. His wife, so Tassif said because of his drinking and the fact that during the fall 2016 semester at the U of I, Christensen got straight Fs in his coursework. He dropped out of the PhD program and decided to pursue a master's downstairs instead. By the spring of 2017, Tassif says Christensen's wife said that she wanted a divorce. So Christensen's depressed at this point and went on OkCupid, and that's how he met his girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend. And basically, they enter into a relationship, into an agreement where he's dominant and she's submissive. They come to that arrangement that's how their dynamic is going to be. And then the weekend that he is charged with having kidnapped and killed Ying Zhang, his wife, which they were not yet separated or divorced, his wife was going to take a vacation, a weekend getaway with her then boyfriend to Wisconsin Dells, and staying in the same resort where Christensen and his wife stayed during their honeymoon. Again, this is all what the defense attorney George Tassif said during his opening statements today. His narrative kind of that he said was that Christensen has hit rock bottom, and then he said, quote, he does the unthinkable. And this is another quote from George Tassif, his defense attorney. He says, quote, Brent takes her to his apartment, he kills her. So again, the defense is not in any way denying that Christensen killed Zhang. Basically, their defense is going to hinge on poking holes in some of the evidence that the prosecution is going to present, and they're going to try to, I can't tell you for sure if they've already assumed that he's going to be found guilty. I don't know that, and I don't want to speculate. But if he is found guilty, I'm sure that what they're getting at is they're going to try to convince the jury to give him life in prison instead of the death penalty. They're trying to save his life at this point. That to me seems like their game. So after the opening statements, there was a 15-minute break. I told you guys a lot of this stuff during a Facebook Live a couple hours ago. Hopefully this is a lot more easy to follow. I was kind of out of breath because I ran out of the courtroom last time. But I'll tell you what else happened during the second part. And I don't have a ton of notes from this next part of the morning. It's there were 3 witnesses called by the government, by the prosecution. And here's one more picture that I have for you right now. This is a picture of the judge, Jim Shadid. 3 witnesses were called. One of them was a U of I police officer who originally took the report that Ying Zhang was missing and went searching for her, looked in her apartment, looked like somebody was living there. Just kind of went through that. Defense didn't have any objections. Defense did not cross-examine him. The next witness was Zhao Wenho, which is Zhang's boyfriend, was planning to marry her in October of 2017. They just talked. The prosecution just asked him about how he knew Zhang and some of their upbringing together. He said that they were top of their class at a university in China before they came here to the United States. They'd known each other since 2009, so we're talking about a 7-8 year relationship here. He last saw her in April of 2017, and he said on the stand today, quote, "I will never give up the hope to find her." The defense did not have any objections to any of the government's questioning. They did not cross-examine him. Third witness that was called this morning, Randy Fouts. He is the Assistant Operations Director for CUMTD, the bus service in town. MTD is what we all call it there. He's a former police officer as well. He just kind of explained video footage in MTD buses. Just showed the different camera angles that an MTD bus has, and really just talking about bus routes as well. So the prosecution said, so if somebody was going to travel from Orchard Downs, which is where Zhang lived, to One North Apartments, which is what she was on her way to do before she was allegedly abducted, this is the bus route that she would take. These are the cameras that would show it. That's what they were kind of getting at. So at this point, we are on a break for lunch. Court resumes at 1:20, so about 40 minutes. At that point, the government is expected to call more witnesses for more testimony throughout the afternoon. Beyond that, the only other detail that I would tell you is that originally, since there's a civil lawsuit going on now, there is a separate lawsuit. Zhang's estate, Ying Zhang's estate, has sued Christensen and 2 U of I counselors, saying that their action or inaction, well, if things had ended up differently as far as that all goes, that she would still be alive, that I guess Christensen wouldn't have gotten the proper intervention. So because of that, the defense filed a motion to continue this morning, saying we need more time to prepare for this trial because there's more evidence that's coming out because of the second lawsuit. The judge, as an order of business, the first thing he did this morning, he denied that and just said, yeah, no, we're going to have the trial. We've got all the witnesses scheduled. Everybody's here. We're going to go ahead with this. So that's most of the details. I didn't have time to type all of this out, but I'm kind of hoping that this was the fastest way that I could get all of this to you. So again, if you missed any of this, the video will be on our Facebook page and on WCIA.com in a couple minutes. So go ahead and watch it again. I'm sorry I don't have a whole lot of time to answer questions right now. And I know that we have a lot of questions. There's a lot of opinions out here. Again, I'm just telling you what happened in court this morning, what the prosecution said, and what the defense said. Again, the biggest headline is that the defense said, yeah, he did it. He killed her. We're not even going to try to deny it. And that could be why the defense didn't cross-examine any of the witnesses so far. So we will have another update the next time we get a break. Thanks for watching here. If you want to see any of those pictures again of the sketch artist and any of the in some of the bullet points, go to my Twitter feed at WCIA3EADS. That's kind of my first line of trying to get this information out. Thanks everybody for watching.